episode of Zone Coverage. I'm Cody Schoeler here with Ryan Root, as always, ready to talk about the NFL action that went down over the weekend. Just one game, but it's the biggest game of the season. And, I'm taking a little victory lap here with my Rams prediction, not only last week, but way back at the start of the season, because, of course, the Los Angeles Rams beat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in Super Bowl 56 in Los Angeles. We got a close game, which we've got a lot of those during the postseason, so that is certainly something to be happy about. The Rams absolutely redeemed themselves for the last time they made it to the Super Bowl. I know I've got quite a few things that I want to talk about this game, but I'll let you kick it off because, just go for it. Hear what you've got to say.
Well, there's so many different ways you can kind of tackle this game, but first of all, you have to give it up for the Rams in finally getting a Super Bowl to LA. I don't think they've ever won a Super Bowl in LA. I think it's only been in St.
LA.
Louis.
They got it 99 in St. Louis. They went to a Super Bowl when they were in LA in the 80s. So first LA Rams Super Bowl, second Super Bowl for the overall franchise.
Right. It's the first Super Bowl for the Rams franchise in 20 years. They've been through however many different quarterbacks and stars and coaching staffs. And, I think of Jeff Fisher and you got Sam Bradford, Marshall Faulk. You can go Steven Jackson. You can go on and on, Torrey Holt. But we finally got a Super Bowl for the Rams. And like I said, going into this game, there's not a good guy or a bad guy in this game. Either side wins, everybody's happy, except for maybe Cincinnati fans, right now. But even then, I think they're so grateful that they could have been in this situation to begin with. But you have to give it up to the Rams who the Bengals took down the Chiefs in Arrowhead on the road in the playoffs, something that's deemed near impossible unless your name is Tom Brady. So they have the greatest comeback in conference game history, 18-point deficit to win in Arrowhead, and they're in the Super Bowl. You think Cincinnati can do everything. That's what I thought. Cincinnati, they can just tackle anything with this team, and they'll do it. And they had a shot. They had a shot to shock the world at the very end. But one stat that they just could not surpass, which is probably the most important stat surrounding this Rams team, is when the Rams are winning at halftime. During the regular season, they've only lost once.
It was week 18 to the Niners.
So it's been a long time before that game that they've lost leading at halftime. I believe it's 40-something and
it was 43-1, and it was record. That, like I said, that Niners game in week 18 at the end of the season. That was the first time they have lost a game leading at halftime. Never done it in the playoffs.
And they never lost leading at halftime in the playoffs, which, that is pretty much the nail in the coffin when it comes to this Rams team, is that if they're leading at halftime, they know how to sit on a lead. They know how to just grind the game out and get the win. And the moment I saw them leading at halftime, I turned to my dad. I'm like, they don't lose ever.
Yeah, but that's
a few weeks ago.
That's not really how it played, though, because, the Bengals had the lead. I feel like they had it pretty quickly after halftime.
Well, they had it on the first play of the second half, a controversial 75-yard touchdown on Jalen Ramsey. We could talk about so many different players on either side, but I'm just happy that the Rams got a Super Bowl, and they did it with this roster.
Donald, a lot of likable guys. I think my big thing is, and I said it, I believe to you, I said it to all my friends, is I had not seen a statistical on-field reason that the Bengals would win the Super Bowl all week. Anybody that was picking the Bengals was saying, I don't know, there's just something about him. Joe Burrow, he wins games. Every on-field matchup and everything pointed towards the Rams. And my thing was, at the end of the day, this game's going to be played on the field, and so I'm not going to go with that. And it played out not exactly how we thought it was going to, but the matchups, I think, played out exactly what we thought. The offensive line held up decent amount in the first half. I mean, the Rams, I think, pressured on over 40% of Burrow's dropbacks, ended up with 7 sacks, which is a Super Bowl record. And it doesn't even count Aaron Donald ragdolling Burrow to the ground on the last Bengals play of the game. That isn't technically a sack, but might as well be. He throws the ball away. And I think that is what, I mean, that's what I thought after that Titans game. I said, luckily they escaped. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to take advantage of that. They weren't able to, but the Rams certainly did. And that's kind of, if you've got to pick something to look at, that's really it. I know Super Bowl, always a big thing is the trenches. This is the game where the trenches, guys get worn out in the trenches. I know Belichick has said some of his biggest mistakes early on in his coaching career were not bringing enough defensive linemen to have to rotate because those guys get tired. The game is just, a different game. It's long halftime, all this stuff. And the Rams dominated the trenches in the second half. And that is what, ultimately won them the game. And then, everybody's take was Joe Burrow, he's just got it in him. This was his first playoff loss ever in college or above. And it was just Joe Burrow. He just makes magic. And he had the ball at the end of the game, and he didn't make the magic. So, it was a great story for Cincinnati. But at the end of the day, the Rams were the better team, and the Rams probably had the 2 to 3 or 4 best players on the field on Sunday. And, I think it certainly – the score, I don't think, represents how the two teams not necessarily played, but I think the Rams were a lot better than a 3-point lead. Especially, I think their defense did incredible. But at the end of the day, they got it done. And the defensive line, especially, was a huge boost for them.
Well, I have to give credit to Joe Burrow for releasing the ball as fast as he did every time that he took a snap on a pass play, because that was one of the biggest things we were talking about going into this game, is that Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Leonard Floyd on the same defensive line going up against the most sacked quarterback in the league. It's going to lead to issues. So Joe Burrow was very instinctive with the ball in terms of just releasing it. Now, in terms of throwing it to the right receiver, there were some key moments where he messed up on that part. The first one that comes to mind is literally the first drive of the game. They go for it on 4th and 1 at midfield, and he throws it instantly to Jamar Chase, who is not only guarded by one Rams defender, but another Rams defender comes in and deflects the pass, and it could have easily been an interception. It was a very forced
linebacker
pass.
Guarding the running back in man coverage, so it just wasn't a great play call. You could it's tell just
right, because Joe Mixon on the swing was wide open. All you needed was a yard. He would have gotten it. So that it's the first drive of the game. It was a 4th down conversion that was missed. Does it tell the game? Not necessarily, but little things do matter in the Super Bowl, especially. But Joe Burrow, he had a game-winning drive on his hands, and I'm like, okay, this is where you either become a legend or you become, still a work in progress, which we all thought he was still a work in progress, which is fair. It's his second year. The fact that
but I think, like I said, the thing with the Bengals was Joe Burrow just wins games. Like, he's got this thing to him. And obviously I'm not, saying that he sucks because of this. And I don't think that ruins, but it's like the Bengals, so many times in these playoffs, we've said this team that lost, they had a chance to win it, all these things. And the Bengals did have a shot to win it, regardless of what you think of how the rest of the game played out. The Bengals had the ball with their timeouts. They got good yardage to Jamar Chase on the first play. And, whether it was questionable play calling or what, but Joe Burrow had the ball in his hands with the game on the line. And if you're Cincinnati, that's probably how you wanted the game to go. And if you're a guy who believes in Joe Burrow, you probably had confidence in that. And he's just, I think this is still, he's still, very young. But, I think that's the thing. It's like the Rams defense was up to the task for sure. I don't know what other directions you want to take this in. I know I have a few things, but Aaron Donald is now like goated. Like he's the best defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman of all time. He's probably a top 5 defensive player ever. I mean, he said all week the one thing he was missing in his career was a Super Bowl ring, and he's like 29. Like he could play 5 more years at this elite level. Like he already has put together one of the best defensive careers of all time. I mean, it's just insane. And so, like you mentioned, it's, regardless of how you feel about either team, if you're a fan of the NFL, you got to love to see Aaron Donald getting a ring, and not only getting it, but making the deciding play too. I mean, it's great to see a guy like that finally get rewarded. And as one of the 2 players on the team that was there in the St. Louis days. So, I mean, he was there through thick and thin, and he's got to see it out all the way through.
Who's the other player that
Johnny
was on St. Louis?
Yeah.
Johnny Hecker, yeah. Oh, of course. Got to keep those punters close. But, I heard all this narrative about Aaron Donald's last game being possibly Super Bowl 56. I only heard this sort of narrative yesterday and yesterday only. I didn't necessarily ever hear of people talking about this being his last game. He just needs the Super Bowl and he's done. I'm like, he's been in the leagues in the 2010s. It's not like he was drafted in like 2007 or something. So what is this talk of him?
My guess is it was kind of brought up throughout the week, kind of behind closed doors when he's talking to people, not publicly. And not necessarily saying, but, probably talking about his career and all that. And he is at the age, it's at 29 years old. I think he's at, it's where you've kind of passed you're no longer going to be at your peak, for non-quarterbacks, obviously. That's like the Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Gronk, the first time kind of retirement age, I think, so some guy like that is kind of the time where, I mean, if Aaron Donald has really done everything he wants to do in the NFL and he knows he'll be in the Hall of Fame in 5 years, he could do it and preserve his body. I don't think it's particularly true. I think it maybe was something he was kind of thinking about. But yeah, I did kind of pop up at random. But my guess, it wasn't just reporters making it up. I just think it was something that was kind of, whether it maybe not even him, but just people close to him being like, yeah, he's kind of like, thinking about it. If they were to win, then, he might consider it. He probably comes back. But even if he doesn't, I mean, like I said, he's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And this cemented. I mean, he hit 8 pressures in the game. I mean, he was just absolutely dominant.
Look, everything after this point is a luxury for his career. He has however many defensive players of the year. I think it's 3, 4, something like that. The fact that you even have 1 is already cementing yourself as a great player. But I guess the only other thing he hasn't had is an MVP. But
I mean,
it's a hard thing to do in today's NFL.
Like single season sack record, which he's flirted with at times. We'll see. Like he's,
like single season sack record, breaking the record for like tackles for loss,
and I mean, he's at
everything that he could.
He's at like 87 sacks. Career records like 200. So a few seasons at 20, we'll see. But depending on how long he plays. But yeah, I mean, he's done everything, and I mean, he did what he had to do. I think it was probably a very close call. I mean, I think if he gets that sack on that last play, then he could have possibly got Super Bowl MVP. I think he was certainly in the conversation. My guy Von Miller, the other player with 2 sacks, almost crept up in there, but he played well as well, along with a lot of defense. But the guy who did win Super Bowl MVP was Cooper Kupp, capping off the greatest wide receiver season, regular and postseason combined, in the history of the NFL. There's really no debate surrounding that. And
because I don't think Jerry Rice ever won Super Bowl MVP in the same year that he did a Triple Crown season.
There's only one player to have ever won the Triple Crown, Offensive Player of the Year, and a Super Bowl MVP in his career, and that's Jerry Rice. And then Cooper Kupp did it this season. So, I mean, he's not only on a list exclusively with Jerry Rice, but he did it in one season. Jerry Rice did it in his whole career. Jerry Rice is still the best receiver of all time. I'm not saying that, but I mean, it goes to show what kind of season Cooper Kupp have. I mean, you could name any receiver in the history of the league, and they have not put together a season like that. He broke the record for playoff yards receiving, receptions. I mean, just so many things, as well as what he did in the regular season, and caps it off with a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, it's a incredible season from Cooper Kupp.
And that's pretty cool for us being Washington people. We got someone from Yakima, Washington, who went to Eastern Washington University, who played for the then Division II Eastern Washington Eagles. And you could have told me back when he was drafted, when I believe I think we were seniors in high school.
Yeah, I think it was
when he was drafted.
2017-ish, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. You could have told me then, you could have gone back in time and told me that he was going to have a Triple Crown, receiving season, Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP. I would have been shocked because all that, again, us being in Washington, all we heard was, Cooper Kupp, he's such an amazing player. They got a steal in the draft. And it's like, okay, well, Calvin Johnson is still playing. I'm sure he won't leave. Obviously, that turned out bad. But anyways, I want to talk about something that could have played a bigger part in this game than it did. Something that was kind of scary, and that's the injuries that occurred during the game. So first half, Odell Beckham Jr., with the way that he was playing in the first half, it may not have been Cooper Kupp that we talked about at the end of the game as the MVP. Odell had some great catches, including a touchdown catch in the first quarter to respond to the Bengals' 4th and 1 attempt. Odell Beckham had a great first half, and I believe it was the third quarter,
no, it was
late in the second quarter. It was late in the second, yeah. So late in the second quarter, Odell Beckham has a non-contact injury to his left knee, the same knee that he tore his ACL on against the Bengals back in the day. So maybe sit out next time you play the Bengals just for mind's sake there. But Odell having a non-contact injury, then you're like, okay, now everything goes to Cooper Kupp. He's not coming back. He's not even suited up or anything. Everything goes on to Cooper Kupp. And I don't have any doubt in my mind that he is going to take every opportunity that comes his way. It's you can't you look at a player like Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams, these players that can be so, they can put a team on their back, so to speak. But at the end of the day, Matt Stafford's not Aaron Rodgers. Cooper Kupp makes it work off of every throw, every opportunity. He's always open. We knew that Cooper Kupp could be that guy to, put the nail in the coffin for the Rams winning the Super Bowl. So Odell Beckham goes down, and then Matt Stafford, I believe, late in the third or it was early in the fourth. I can't quite remember. Matt Stafford was the next player to go down off of a
Eric Weddle, he got injured during the game.
Eric Weddle did as well, and he played the rest of the game.
Tore his pec, I think, and he played the rest of the game. And this is a guy who had.
Yeah, if you're in the Super Bowl and the leg's not broken, you're still going to go out there and play.
If the leg is broken, shout out to Terrell Owens. But Eric Weddle, this guy didn't play football for the last 2 years. He didn't play the last 2 seasons. The Rams signed him to play in the postseason. He does that, and then I know somebody asked him, like, "Are you retiring after the game?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not. I'm retiring." He just tore his pec in the Super Bowl after not playing.
Him and Andrew Whitworth, of course, capping off his final year with the team, who is now the third player in history to be in the Super Bowl at the age of 40 and above.
To start the Super Bowl. And I assume that's not including kickers. Obviously.
I guess because he'd probably throw Vinatieri in there. I guess,
so I believe it's not including kickers. Did he say for sure he's retiring?
Yeah, he pretty much it didn't say it explicitly,
we'll
but
see.
everything he said has been leaning towards him retiring. If you're a 40-year-old left tackle in today's NFL and you just won a Super Bowl, and I mean,
Hey, you never know.
I think it's
Never
over.
know.
You play. Not only that, Whitworth used to be a
Yeah.
Bengal anyways, so he won a Super Bowl over his former
Mhm.
team. I mean, if you're looking at the entire book of his career,
Yeah.
right there, period, you're done. But so Matt Stafford goes down with a sack from a Cincinnati lineman that I'm trying to think of the name. I don't think it was Hubbard or Hendrickson. But he goes down on his ankle a little bit weird. It kind of gets cranked around. So again, this didn't phase me either because Matt Stafford has to be the toughest quarterback in the league in terms of playing through injuries.
I mean,
anybody could watch the game-winning drive of him playing for the Lions against, I believe it was the Texans, and throwing a game-winning touchdown on a broken shoulder, torn shoulder, something that you're not supposed to be able to throw a football off of. He went out there and threw a game-winning pass on it. So Matt Stafford has kind of that, that Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality instinct to him where, even if he's hurt, he's going to go out there and play. But to top it off, to make it 3 players now, or I guess 4, including Eric Weddle, Joe Burrow.
Other guys that get shaken up for sure, but these are the big ones. Yeah.
Yes, these are the big ones. Sorry about the other people. Joe Burrow gets sacked by I don't think it was Von Miller.
This one might have been the
Leonard Floyd.
Ashawn Robinson sack.
Yeah, they weren't big.
Wasn't the Ashawn Robinson
making these sacks?
It was one where he got it might have been the Von Miller. It was one where he kind of just was. I mean, it was in the middle, kind of a lot of guys around him.
Yeah, he gave himself up, but when you have that many people around you, something might bend weird. Yeah. And, I don't know how you really avoid that as a quarterback because, I'm sure players like, Tom Brady, especially recent seasons, if he's facing the pressure of someone running at him, he's going to lay down. There's no point.
He just takes the intentional grounding is what he's done what he did for the last however many years. Like he just would throw it away, take the penalty. It's just like a sack, but
players after a while get more smart in terms of, is this a sack that I can avoid? Is this, a sack that I'm just going to have to take? Joe Burrow takes a sack in a mob of Rams defenders, and his injury was probably the most concerning to me, at least on camera, because his knee bends in a very odd direction. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the same knee that he tore last season. I'd like to believe that it is. But Joe Burrow goes down, and you can see on his face he is screaming. And when you see a player go through something like that, now we have something to be concerned about. But needless to say, Joe Burrow still went out there in the next drive. Again, wrap that knee up. If you can play, you can play. Your team's kind of depending on you. But I'm sure that was his choice to be like, nope, I'm playing. Yeah. This is it.
But the Bengals also, like that next drive, they were running it a lot more. It's something they really didn't do throughout the game, which kind of surprised me, is just to run the ball to keep it off of. Joe Burrow. They did it more than they did it a bit more, but not with the pressure and then with the injury, and then they finally started to. But just run the ball to take a few, just take some pressure off of him. So they did that a bit after, and you have to wonder how much, if that, knee or whatever did affect him down the stretch. He didn't, do anything terribly bad. He was short a bit on a little comeback to Jamar Chase at one point. But, two guys that you were going to have to probably chop one of their legs off to get them to not head back out onto the field. Stafford certainly looked, I think Stafford was fine after his, and then it'd be interesting to see if because it was his, I forget which one was Plant or whatever, but definitely could have impacted a little bit. But I think the Odell injury was absolutely huge because you said now it all shifts to Kupp, which it did, but he only had 5 catches before that final drive. The offense was kind of sputtering. I mean, one of
and I said it to my dad while we were watching the game. I was like, Cooper Kupp's been pretty invisible this second half. I'm surprised that the ball's not going
the
to
Rams
him
offense
half
was
the
just
time.
kind of like sputtering. Yeah, you would have think give him the ball a lot more. I mean, Van Jefferson was kind of a non-factor. His child was born after the game, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's
Wife
something, isn't
went
it?
into labor at the arena, which that's the perks of playing in your home stadium. And then Ben Skoranek, who's been the fill-in for Odell at times, just wasn't really effective, whether it was a route running or timing. And then the second Matthew Stafford pick was the one that kind of bounced off his hand. That Odell injury really, really hurt the Rams. And if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp, I mean, stepping up and really putting the team on his back at the end, I mean, who knows how that plays out? And I want to talk about that final drive because, like we talked about,
I was about to get there too. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't hit 100 yards, which he did more than any receiver ever. He ended up with 92 receiving yards.
I know, such a pity. What a terrible performance.
Yeah, I mean, when he gets short. 9 catches for 92 yards, and I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't know if he gets Super Bowl MVP. Like,
is he really the best receiver?
Only 92 yards. Yeah. Like, I was expecting like 150 from him. But then we start seeing why he was the greatest receiver this season. And not that this game changed anything, but what separates the truly greatest receivers is that you can get them the ball anywhere on the field at any time, and they can make a play. I think him and Devontae Adams are the top 2 above everybody else in that regard, whether it's a bubble screen or a slant or something over the middle. Like, it just doesn't matter. Cooper Kupp makes guys miss at a rate that is insane given his, size and stature. That's a motor.
We're having a lot of stuff going on out there.
But I mean, Cooper Kupp is just, like, you get him the ball, he makes a play. I mean, how many times does he catch it, 3 yards behind the first down marker, and he ends up getting 8 more? Like, it's insane. And I mean, he started to, when they needed a play or multiple plays, when they needed to go and score a touchdown, they started giving it to Cooper Kupp all the time, and that's what worked. Like, I think nobody was surprised about that.
So, especially with that game-winning drive from the Rams, the second to last drive in the game, not including the kneel downs, we have to talk about that in terms of the officiating, because I'm not going to sit here and say that they were poor calls and this wasn't that and this wasn't that. For the most part, they were reasonable calls.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I think Cooper Kupp is probably getting hounded all game like that. Like, you have to do it, and the refs are going to throw it all the time. But as much as we don't want to see it defined by flags, I don't want the final drive to come down to, Cooper Kupp getting yanked around 5 yards down the field. Like, let the players play.
Okay, yanked around is a little much. Is the thing. Like, there were some passes where, they're either calling pass interference or they're calling holding when it should be the other call. Like, holding is before the ball goes through the air. Pass interference is when the ball is in the air. Both of them result in an automatic first down, so it's not like it matters too much. But the Bengals are trying their hardest to make a red zone stand, and I'm sitting there saying, if the Bengals can solidify this red zone and keep them out of the end zone, I mean, that's going to be the defining moment of the game, is how this Bengals offense or this Bengals defense just shuts down the Rams. They didn't have a great chance in doing that when you have the best receiver in the league out there. So the point is that there were not really any flags at all being thrown in this game, which was actually kind of nice. There were missed calls,
kind of
for
a problem,
sure.
Because the most glaring ref mistake was the pass interference that they didn't call on the T. Higgins touchdown. I mean, if you want to point to the refs,
sure.
that changes the game more than any of these other calls. That was
There was another play. I think there was another play on Jalen Ramsey that could have been called on the offense. I'm trying to remember what play it was. I think it was one of the touchdowns. Or no, because Joe Mixon had the one wide open touchdown. T. Higgins had the others.
But I mean,
I think it was just it was a catch that had a lot of contact, and I mean, obviously Jalen Ramsey did not have the game that we thought we was going to have. Obviously, I mean, the controversial 75-yard touchdown where T. Higgins basically fished.
I think Jalen Ramsey had a good game. He had one.
You can't say that if he's letting up over 100 yards in receiving throughout the entire game. So I'm just saying the controversial plays included with this because it's just football and stuff happens. 75 yards off that one pass, which is the longest pass he's allowed his entire career. And then you had a huge catch from Jamar Chase downfield in the first half. That puts him over 100 those are two catches. And if it was late in the game, I mean, Jalen Ramsey's the best corner in the league. Don't get me wrong. But he didn't quite have the performance that we thought. He had
one mistake. The Jamar Chase catch, but also that catch, that was an incredible catch by Jamar Chase. I mean, the one-handed kind of diving thing, a lot of other receivers don't make that catch. Jalen Ramsey was not totally cooked. But other than that, Chase had 4 receptions for 40-something yards, and you take away 75 yards from T. Higgins, where he did pass interference and a face mask, gets 75 yards. T. Higgins.
Well, I guess it would only really be pass
interference. I think even if he didn't grab the face mask and yank it, he still pushed him and he grabbed the face mask. So it was doubly bad. T. Higgins had 25 yards other than that. I mean, Jalen Ramsey had a good game. I'm not saying a great game because of that one Jamar Chase one, but I mean, we talked about it. I mean, Jamar Chase, like I said, he had 80 yards with that long bomb, and without that long bomb, didn't do much. And T. Higgins, other than the offensive PI, didn't do anything. So, I mean, I think Jalen Ramsey did great. He had broke up a touchdown to T. Higgins that ended up in a field goal. I think.
So with the 75-yard reception being a scoring play, a controversial play, correct me if I'm wrong. You can challenge non-pass interference calls.
No, you can't challenge. Wait, you can't challenge pass interference. It did.
You can't. That was a rule that was made after the Rams Saints playoff game.
They did it for 1 year and then they took it away.
So that doesn't exist anymore, is what you're telling me. Wow, I did not know that. I thought it still existed because if it still existed, then that's on Sean McVay to throw the challenge fight.
You cannot do that anymore.
That's a poor decision. Okay. I'm surprised I didn't know that because it's been however many years since that.
It didn't really lead to it. But I mean, so my thing is, and the third down one to Cup on the linebacker, that's probably the ticky-tackiest of them all. I believe that's one where they called the holding and not the pass interference, so they called it before the ball was thrown. I think the next one on kind of the rollout to the right, I think he definitely did get held, and that was when the ball was in the air.
There's a difference between being held and there's a difference between having a hand on him.
Yeah.
Because being held means you are being restricted from being able to catch that ball. And it's Cooper freaking Kupp. He's going to make a play on the ball. I have a different sort of view on pass interference as a whole. If the receiver is able to make a play on the ball, the ball touches his hands, then there shouldn't be nearly as many pass interference calls as there are. Pass interference is supposed to be making the ball uncatchable for the receiver because you're unfairly hitting him, grabbing him, whatever, to make the ball uncatchable. If the receiver is making a play on the ball, it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, it does in a sense where if they're upside down and in the air and they make a play on the ball, but they didn't catch it, well, sure, how the hell are you going to be able to catch that? But there shouldn't be nearly as many defensive pass interference calls as there are. I think many people would agree with that, that it's a controversial call to begin with.
What the refs did is they let them play for the most part, and then when the game was on the line, they weren't calling terrible calls, but they were going, all right, we're gonna you're gonna have to do it right, at least. Like, you're not going to be able – you can't just grab him when he comes out of his break. Like, we're not going to let you get away with that. Like, we're not going to let you win a game like that.
But the inverse of that is if you call the plays early on and throughout, then more so the players are going to be able to realize they can't get away with the things that they're doing. They're going to play a cleaner game.
I mean,
you kind of have to choose which way you want to call the game is all I'm saying.
think you should just, like, guard guys without, like, just don't grab. Like, when you grab a dude, you can get called for a penalty. So don't get mad if you get called for a penalty. Like, but also it's like it's going to be, like, in the second quarter, you're just going to be more likely to get away with it. Like, it's just how it's going to be. But, I mean, and regardless, I mean, the second one, I think that happened on, like, first down. So that one doesn't really, I think, like, it does put the ball at the 1 yard line, but I don't view that one as changing the game as much because I feel like the Rams kind of had the momentum at that point. I believe they do the QB sneak next, get a little short, and then they throw the fade to Kupp. And not to mention, Kupp catches another touchdown. He catches a touchdown on that drive a few plays earlier, and they get the Rams for a hold, and then they get the helmet hit. Yeah, they called it dead ball, but it wasn't dead ball. It was just, I mean, helmet hit. So he caught 2 touchdowns on that drive. But, I mean, people are going to complain about the refs if they didn't get the outcome they wanted, but that's probably going to happen either way because
I can understand that too. I can understand that to a point because if you're going to let them play the game and then make the calls when they're there when the game's on the line, that's fine if the calls are literally like game defining. Yeah. I mean, again, these holds in these contests on Cooper Kupp, he had the greatest receiving season of all time. I'm sure it doesn't affect him. It's not like he was getting tackled before the ball got to him. I mean, you can make these calls when there are plays like the Saints-Rams game where the player was obviously tackled before the ball even got to him. I mean, there's plays like that you could absolutely make the call because maybe this is just the Seahawks bias playing a part into this, but I might as well bring it up considering every time that NBC has a primetime game on, they got to bring up the damn game. So Super Bowl 49, goal line interception, that to me looks more like a controversial play to call a pass interference on than Cooper Kupp.
Different if you're making a play on the ball or you're just playing the receiver. And like in this case, these guys were just.
But you watch that play back, and Malcolm Butler hits Ricardo Lockett before the ball gets there. Yeah. It's a contested. They're both playing the ball, whatever. That to me is a very big play to call in the moment, and that to me has more potential of getting a flag thrown than these flags in the end zone on Cooper Kupp. Where I know one of them was they threw the ball at Cooper Kupp. I think it was one of the ones that he was held. It was out of his reach, and the ref sits there, and I swear he almost just gives like a nod, and he's like, "Okay, now it's a flag." Like late flags always piss me off. Don't get me wrong, but let me also just say this is not a defining thing in this game. That's Rams my thing. Drive. It's just something that is going to stick out because it's the game.
But I also I agree with that. It's like you can complain about the refs in any football game you ever watch, but this is like not even top. I don't even know 10 of the last like 5 years where I was like the refs impacted this game more. Like there's so many other games that I think the refs mess up more. So it's like. Yes, you could say, "Oh no, we called this," but it's like at the end of the game, at the end of the day, like I think you can talk about this game without mentioning the refs, and like it's fine. Like they didn't play that. They didn't. I don't think they really changed. Like I don't think they changed it like a crazy amount. Like I don't think it influenced it at an abnormal like rate. Like I think they didn't call a bunch. They called some, but I still think that T. Higgins one is the most impactful. Just happened at a different time.
The T. Higgins one. There was also a running into the kicker call that I wish we would have gotten an instant replay on in the second half. There was the Cincinnati punter. punted the ball and was hit. But, if the ball is hit first, then it's fair game. The ball wasn't hit. So I at least wanted to see a replay if he just faked the fall or if he was hit. We don't talk about that.
Well, my guess is that it was pretty clear that the dude gets blocked into him. That's just my guess. Why it wasn't called and why it wasn't shown is because it was pretty clear that because it wasn't like free rushers, like guys were blocking. My guess is the dude gets blocked into him, and because that's one that they get pretty easily. There's a guy right there watching it. So that was just my guess. Like they didn't show the replay, but like I don't think this game is as ref defined as a lot of other ones that we've seen over the course. And so I think it's like it's not necessarily great, but it's fine. But also, what it comes back to is regardless of how you feel about those Cooper Kupp penalties, like the Bengals then had a chance to win it, and the refs didn't impact this one. And so I'm not saying don't complain about the refs. You had your chance. It's, the same thing with the Bill. Like, I'm not saying Bills, don't complain about the overtime rules. You had a chance to stop them. But it is a thing where it's like that played a part in it, but it wasn't, one of these plays where it's like, all right, like that play not only changed the game, but kind of won the game. Like the Bengals had a chance, a really good chance to tie it up. First thing, just to tie it, Evan McPherson had missed a kick all season, all playoffs. They get good yardage from Jamar Chase. They're at around midfield. They get 2nd and 1, and they don't end up converting it. So, the Bengals did end up with their chance. Because you could argue that they wanted the Rams to score a touchdown as quick as possible and give them time. Yeah. I know that happened in the Chiefs game, and we know how that played out. But you could argue that, they let them score 30 seconds earlier. Then you've got a different game.
Yeah, and that, like, I always say that when you're in a situation like this where you're within 10 yards of the end zone, coming back in the game, and the 2-minute warning hits. If you're on defense, let them score.
But
to preserve the clock, to try to have.
But you saw the Bengals like pull it off against the Chiefs by not letting them score. So they kind of had that.
The only thing you could run into with that is letting them score could be. I don't know how great that looks on paper for a team that just says let them score. Like, when has there been like a blatant like here?
It happened in the Chargers game versus somebody in the regular season early on. I think it was that Browns game. But the problem is if you do that and you don't win the game, you will get absolutely
look
murdered.
Stupid. Yeah, that's what I was.
So you can't do that,
right?
Like you can. I think they could have like on the QB sneak, you could make them score without making it super obvious. But if you just like leave the receivers wide open, like you're gonna get destroyed for that. So, and in the Super Bowl, I think you gotta I don't think you can play that. They called the timeouts to make sure that if the Rams could take it down to 0. But yeah, no, I agree. Some games, sure. Like if at the 1 yard line, maybe stop trying to stop their dives for 3 times in a row if they're just going to score again. But yeah, and like I said, they did against the Chiefs. They were able to stop them, force a field goal, and they had chances on that. But I want to talk about something that I think was really impactful in this game, and it was the 4th down calls, kind of just throughout the game. I know one of my friends mentioned kind of I think it was on that first drive, Bengals get 4th down at midfield, and he goes, they're going to punt it. NFL coaches are so conservative. And I was like, actually this year we've seen
this game is changing. The league is changing a lot.
This season we've seen, obviously, I'm going to take away anything on your own side of the field, because obviously you're going to punt those. But from the 50 on in, we've seen guys go for it far more than we ever have before. And Zach Taylor and Sean McVay are 2 of the
youngest
and
coaches.
2 of the guys who do that the most. Like Brandon Staley does it a bunch. There's guys who do it more than others.
Buffalo
Yeah,
is one of the best
Buffalo
teams to do it.
does it as well. But there's some teams that even do it. Even though the league average is up, there's some teams that even do it more than that. These teams especially. So we saw it. Teams. We saw these teams going. Hey, we're gonna put it in our quarterbacks and our offense's hands. Obviously, they worked out how they did in the first, but I mean, at the end of the game is when it really mattered. I mean, we saw the Rams go for it in their own territory on 4th and 1 with, I think, what was a great call because the Rams were not able to run the ball very well all game, and they get it to Cooper Kupp, which I think was absolutely the right idea. Get the ball to your best player. They do it on a little jet sweep, and he gets 7,
which somehow worked.
Because
jet sweeps are always kind of scary,
and especially with the way the Rams have been blocking the running on that day. It wasn't like necessarily bad run calls. It was just there seemed to be an unblocked guy every time, and I mean he was able to make a guy miss. And I mean I think it was a smart play. Get the ball to Cooper Kupp, take out even the idea of throwing it, and make it seem like you're going to go up the middle and give it to your best player running laterally. I would take him one-on-one for 1 yard with a linebacker or whoever, and it worked. I think that was an incredible play call from Sean McVay and the Rams, and it really kind of set the tone for that drive.
So, going forward on 4th down, once again, watching this game with my parents who watched a different era of football than I did when I was my age. Anytime someone goes for it on 4th down and the game's not on the line, my dad's going to have a fit about it. What are you doing? You're at the 50-yard line to the opening drive. I'm under the firm belief that, I'm under the firm opinion that if you go for it on 4th down on the opening drive, like the Bills did against the Chiefs in the divisional round,
twice,
it's a statement.
Yeah.
They did it twice, and the second one was goal line touchdown. It's a statement to make to the other team because, there is a psychological aspect to going for it on 4th down, more so than, a statistical reasoning for doing so.
Statistically, a 3rd and 1 or a 2nd and 1. Like there's so much more that goes into it, like getting that 1 yard.
Right. But going for 4th and 1 on the 50-yard line, you almost have to take into account, okay, if I don't get this, they're at the half-yard mark. Was it really going to be that crazy if they were at this point if I would have punted it?
Especially because you punt it, you get a touchback. That's a 30 yards different. Like the risk reward there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're going up against the Rams with the best receiver in the league. So, you're kind of just accepting a minor defeat in that case of saying, oh, they would have been here anyways, where you can easily have a 3-and-out against any team in the league if you just put the right amount of pressure on them and, cover the receivers and whatnot.
I will say, if you're the Legion of Boom Seahawks or the Patriots defense a few years ago or the Ravens in 2000, then you're probably going to punt in some of those instances because your defense is, that good. And you saw it from the Rams a bit. They were trusting their defense, but neither of these teams' defense was better than their offense. So why not trust my offense to get 1 yard as opposed to, my defense stopping them, So when you get these offensive-driven teams, you should be able to get 1 yard. You should be confident that you should be able to get 1 yard. Don't go for it on your own 15 maybe, but, you should have plays to get 1 yard.
Because the other thing that goes hand in hand with going for it on 4th down, and Joe Burrow isn't this type of quarterback, but some teams like the Bills, I'll mention again, Josh Allen on 4th down, I don't think there's, other than maybe Patrick Mahomes, and maybe that's more so saying on the Chiefs' part than it is on Patrick's part, but Josh Allen probably has to be one of the best 4th down quarterbacks in the league, considering that he can drop back into the shotgun, hikes the ball, and he'll just run right up the middle and get a first down because he's 6'5" and he's athletic as hell, and he could just bulldoze through people. But Joe Burrow's not the same type of player, so when he runs, he's going to take a slide. But again, you see quarterbacks now like Patrick Mahomes, like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson,
Burrow,
who are more risky with rushing the ball. it just goes to show these quarterbacks are able to do more
Well,
than
and
ever.
it gives you
And
the extra thing of you can call a play and, it's just one. Like Joe Burrow can scramble. He did it, I think, once, not on a 4th and 1. He got, a few yards. Stafford did it once too. But it's like having just that aspect of if he drops back and he sees that he can get 1 yard rushing, you've got that too. Obviously, he couldn't do that here because Aaron Donald was in his face immediately. I mean, we can talk about the last Bengals drive. Like I said, they get the 2nd and 1. They don't get it. They get the 3rd and 1. They run it up the middle, don't get it. Now they're on 4th and 1. Aaron Donald was in there immediately. But, I mean, that's a case where, you saw what the Rams did on 4th and 1. They got it immediately to Cooper Kupp. You could have expected something similar like that maybe from Jamar Chase. But I think, like I said, those 4th down calls are going to be – they were a huge deciding factor because the Bengals ended up not getting their 4th down when they needed it most.
So I just thought of this now, considering that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, that's, today's Manning Brady. In terms of a rivalry.
It's got to develop a bit, but it looks like it for sure. Burrow could end up in that conversation.
But I'm going to use this game now to say, what quarterbacks do you think this era has these people to be? So, like, from looking at this game in terms of experience and whatnot, I think the closest thing you can say Matt Stafford is obviously this player never won a Super Bowl, but he's probably closest to Phil Rivers in this scenario with the Chargers. Had a history of not making it far in the playoffs or winning a Super Bowl. Obviously, they've had great teams, but going to Joe Burrow, I think he's kind of more the Ben Roethlisberger in this scenario because Ben Roethlisberger is the youngest player. I'm cutting in and out.
Yeah, I can still hear you, but
okay. Ben Roethlisberger is the youngest quarterback ever to start a Super Bowl, and Ben Roethlisberger ended up being one of those kind of sleeper quarterbacks throughout his career to get a pair of Super Bowls for Pittsburgh. So I do think Matt Stafford may. I still think he has enough left in the tank to get to another Super Bowl for sure. This is by far not the last time that we're going to see Joe Burrow at this stage.
Okay, so yeah, we're getting into some things that now I want to talk about with that. I think Matt Stafford's kind of, it's like Kurt Warner-y, like Cardinals Kurt Warner if he never won that first Super Bowl, kind of.
Okay.
And obviously but there's not really that guy who there hasn't really been the late switches teams, finally wins it. And especially not a guy who was kind of wasted away on the because
it's not necessarily Drew Brees,
no.
It's
so it's kind of, but I kind of want to talk about what this kind of we kind of glossed over Matt Stafford, but I think this was absolutely huge for him, and he was the guy who was he's good, but he's not top tier. He's all right, but how much of it was him not being good enough to lead the Lions to these wins? And I think he showed that he, it wasn't his fault what happened in Detroit, and that now he's in this great situation, and he goes on and wins it. I think huge just relief for him to get that Super Bowl where he's at in his career, and I think it'll really solidify his legacy. Now I don't think that he's Hall of Fame or anything. People are gonna throw that out. I don't think that's a conversation that needs to be had, but absolutely huge moment for him, and overjoyed for him to get that. And like I said, it's really not something we've seen in a while. I can't rack my head through every quarterback who's ever won a Super Bowl, but I can't really think of one. I'm sure there's one back in the day, but the guy who was really solid for so much of his career, one place, he goes somewhere else, and he wins the Super Bowl. He finally does what he needed to do. And also for the Rams, it was the perfect fit. The Rams hadn't won it before. They maxed out with Jared Goff. They went and got their guy. So it really, it really just worked perfectly.
Yeah, so Matt Stafford is probably in kind of a category of his own in that part. But
I'm gonna scroll through this and see if anybody. Oh, Nick Foles. There really isn't like these guys.
Nick Foles was more of like a comeback tour because
people
don't remember Nick Foles's 2014 season with the Eagles where he had one of the highest passer ratings of all time, and then he goes to the Chiefs when they get Carson Wentz. Did Nick Foles go somewhere else after the Chiefs, or did he go right back to?
No, he was on the Rams. I guess I'm looking through. The biggest one here would be like Jim Plunkett.
I don't even remember what team he plays for.
He was on the Patriots and Niners for a few years, and he goes to the Raiders and wins the Super Bowl. But even that was, he's a Heisman Trophy winner and everything. But all these quarterbacks were either like guys who were with the team or had won one previously with another team, or your Brad Johnsons, Trent Dilfers, Nick Foles, who were like they weren't really the guy. They stepped in. And they had this career of success that they didn't get the Super Bowl. Like you've had two groups you've got quarterbacks that win Super Bowls, quarterbacks that have good careers and don't win Super Bowls. And then you have Eli Manning. It really is a unique situation for what they've done. And like I said, the Rams, the legacy for the Rams is that, they went all in on this season. They have been laughed at, I guess, in a ways of they've traded away all their first round picks.
I never laughed at their decision to trade for. I thought the Matt Stafford trade was huge for them. The Jalen Ramsey trade, I think, was where more people were like, okay, that's a lot to give up for the best corner in the league. You still have Jared Goff at the end of the day. So
some people I think got to a point where it was like you keep I think they started to question if it worked. You're trading all these picks for players, but you thought it would result in the 2018 Super Bowl or whatever, but it didn't. It started to question if it worked, and I think especially if they would have lost, they would have kind of flamed out this year. Then it would have been looked at potentially as really bad. And I think there's people that thought that they could do it with Jared Goff, and I guess I'm thinking when I say laughed at, I'm thinking more of some more critical. People that I know, but they went all in and it worked. They got their Super Bowl win. We'll see if it was a 1 year thing, but I think they're set up for some decent success. And I don't think they fully sold out for one season. I think they have some prolonged success that's possible. Everybody talks about how are you going to keep paying all these guys, and they've got to let a lot of really solid free agents go, but they seem to develop late round guys pretty well. But it's certainly, they would have been under a lot of scrutiny if they didn't, get this far and do this good with all the win now moves they've made.
This is just LA sports at its finest. LA spends the money. They spend their draft capital to go and get their guys. Now, Patrick Mahomes doesn't play for the Rams. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play for the Rams. It's different from, the Lakers and the Dodgers and even the Kings back in the day with Gretzky coming to town. LA sports.
Sacramento Kings. I was like, Sacramento Kings, but
no. I got to mention hockey at least once. But that's just LA sports. And if anything, this sucks for the Chargers because now the LA team in the league where we already knew the Rams were the LA team and the Chargers were just in there, to try to be a part of a new friend group. It seems, they're playing in a stadium that's shaped like the Rams logo. So
the Clippers.
Right. And this sucks especially for the Chargers because yes, you do have Justin Herbert, who's going to be a great star. But
and we'll see. Maybe they do it.
Maybe they do, but that's the same thing we were saying with the Clippers. And, at least I believe the Dodgers and the Angels. I'm not a baseball guy by any means. They've
Angels
both
haven't
won.
won it. I mean,
The
Angels won it
Angels
like
haven't won it.
2002.
Okay, well, they both have a championship at least,
Yeah.
and Chargers Rams can't say the same thing. Clippers Lakers can't say the same thing. With the Kings and the Ducks, they both won championships. Ducks in Anaheim, it's like 30 minutes away. It counts.
That's the Angels are too. Yeah.
So the Chargers, they kind of get the bad end of this Super Bowl deal, especially since the last game of the season. They were in that crazy scenario with the Raiders as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers respond to this because I think still to this day, they're going to be that second LA team, even though when they had their great teams with Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, they were in San Diego, the 15-1 Chargers that never made it to the Super Bowl. And, the Chargers are always going to come in second, it seems. They're the new, they're like the Mets to the Yankees, right? It's always
it's a perfect. I mean, it's right there. They're the Clippers. Nobody gives a shit about the Clippers, and I mean,
but they won't ever make a huge like free agency signing.
Yeah. I mean,
they're not going to
Rams,
right?
The Rams aren't necessarily the Lakers either. Like, I mean, we've heard all offseason or all postseason about the Rams. Don't really have home field advantage at their own place. It's really interesting.
Which is a bunch of BS.
Well, in terms of like the fan support, like I agree too. You've got home field advantage whether you're playing at home, no matter who else is there. But
because who can afford those tickets at the Super Bowl? It's people who live in LA. Yeah. That's who can afford tickets to the Super Bowl.
And I think even the game yesterday, there was more in terms of the vocal fans was more Cincinnati than LA is what I've heard, just because like there isn't really an LA casual fan base. We've seen the Niners override it, but I mean the Rams, they won, so you can't take that away from them. You can't say that any of their moves didn't work because
I wonder what St. Louis is thinking right now. Is St. Louis still like Rams fans? You think? Like
I don't know if they care. I don't know if they care. That's a baseball.
Yeah, but I mean they. The last Rams Super Bowl was in St. Louis, so I think they probably care a little.
They probably just became Chiefs fans, and so
they're right there. You're right. Yeah, so I mean,
Missouri. But I do want to talk about the Bengals because I'm not so certain that the Bengals will get to a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. Like I think we thought that this was. Oh, the Bengals, they're an up and coming, which they are, but I'm not so sure that they are. Like I still think the Chiefs and the Bills run that conference, and I'm not so ready to put the Bengals in that conversation. I think we see times where we think this is the start of something, and it doesn't turn out to be like I think the Bengals. Like I don't think the Bengals are the top 5 like team heading into the season. I know they made it to the Super Bowl, but if you had me look at their whole season, I don't know if I'd put them in top 5 even this year. Like they made a great run, but this was kind of a thing where it's like this was kind of their chance and everything kind of aligned perfectly for them and it didn't work out. And I think we kind of, whenever we see these young teams get there, we kind of seem to just write it off as they'll be back. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, the Bengals.
So
but
don't get me wrong, they will be back. Giving them a 5-year span for them not to be back, I think that
be back in what sense? In the Super Bowl?
Yes, Joe Burrow will be back in the Super Bowl.
I would be. I'm
not saying next season, but
no, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make it back to the Super Bowl in 5 years.
Well, 5 years, a lot can happen.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
So you could have. I'm not even going to try to predict what's going to happen in 5 years because I'll probably be amazed with what happens 5 years from now. Anyways,
that's what I'm saying. Like we see these young teams and we just assume that it'll be like this for. It's like, oh, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will play together for 10 years and they'll dominate the league. Like,
well, I mean, it's the same thing with the Cardinals, right? Where you see Kyler Murray, you see DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, see all these great players. They make it to the playoffs this year. Well, disregarding the playoff run this year, before this season, and you could argue even before the previous season, people were like, oh my gosh, the Cardinals, They're up and coming. They're going to be. This is now bringing the Cardinals into the Super Bowl picture again, and in the playoff picture with Kyler Murray. They go 8-8 the one year, and then going into this year, it's like, oh, the Cardinals, they're playing in the best division of football, but they could make the playoffs, and then they play really well. The first half of the season fall apart, and now Kyler Murray's having all this drama with him on social media. So I think Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow are vastly different quarterbacks, not only in terms of play style, but in terms of just overall mentality in the game. So people said the same thing about the Cardinals, are saying the same thing about the Cardinals.
I
think the Bengals have more. I mean, the Bengals literally have more playoff experience than the Cardinals do in however long. When was the last time they won a playoff game? Their Super Bowl year? I mean,
comparing them to the Cardinals. I'm comparing them to.
No, I'm just saying people say the same thing with the Cardinals.
I don't know.
The Bengals are in a better starting point than the Cardinals are.
I don't know but I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure the Bengals
when there was all this Kyler Murray MVP talk and stuff like that, you never heard
sure the Bengals win the division next year. Like, they're not, like, they aren't this like bona fide like AFC
other than the Ravens. Who's contesting them in that division?
I mean, who said the Bengals were contesting last year?
No, I understand. We can't talk about a year ago from now. We have to talk about now. So
if the Steelers get a quarterback, they'll be good.
No, it doesn't. They're not the Steelers that we.
They had one.
Notice how you're saying if there.
Yeah.
Who has to be the quarterback that gets them there?
They finished with half a loss less than the Bengals this year. What I'm saying is this could end up looking fluky in like 5 years from now, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like this isn't the. I don't think this is the start of like this Cincinnati like dynasty that I think some people are kind of thinking it is.
So, do you think they're going to get hit with the Carolina Panthers syndrome, where they have an amazing year, losing the Super Bowl, and now we would never even consider them to be in the Super Bowl as of right now?
I mean, I don't know. It's possible. I just think I think the Bengals will still be good. I'm just saying, like, I don't like. I just think we do this thing in all sports. We see this young team achieve this, thing, and you go, well, I feel like we did it with the Chiefs. They win that Super Bowl, and we go, who's stopping them? And
okay, when you win a Super Bowl,
yeah,
that's different than being in the Super Bowl.
But what I'm saying is, like, we've just thought it was inevitable that Mahomes would keep getting more Super Bowls, and that might not be. Like,
he had an amazing season the year before, and he's still. Yeah. I mean,
but like what I'm saying is, there's so many more. Like Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, if you told people then, they're not going to win another Super Bowl, I don't think people would have believed you then. If you told
that's just Aaron Rodgers. He's a man of his own.
Like the Colts with Peyton Manning when they won it, or the Saints with Drew Brees. Like we feel like I think a lot of times we see these things happen, and sometimes it doesn't get better than that. I think the Bengals might have hit that point. Like I'm just saying.
So what separates those teams then? The Super Bowl winning teams going into the next few seasons, and then they're not the same team. What separates the teams that, the Patriots that have been doing it for 2 decades or have done it for 2 decades?
I mean, first off, it's a franchise that like develops success and stuff. Like the Patriots became that, but I mean, the Bengals really for the last 30 years have been one of the most inept franchises.
Yes, for the last 30 years, but for the past 2 years, they've gotten the best player in the draft.
Past one year, they've been good.
No, I'm saying the past 2 years, they've gotten the best player in the draft.
Debatable.
Well, it's proof that they made it to the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert is not here.
The free agency additions and stuff. But what I'm saying is, like, it's like I think people have been viewing this as like the start of this Bengals thing, and I'm just like I'm not sure that we'll see them back anytime soon. Like it's possible, but I think that I could see them getting passed up. I could see them being like a Panthers that year, or some of these like flukier situations.
We can't like you look back at the history books at maybe like the Eagles, and you'd say that looks like a fluke from a few years ago.
But
the Eagles,
sense.
There were however many players that were playing one of their last seasons, if not their last season.
They don't have, they don't have the quarterback and the coach anymore.
They're completely different. That was just a one-off. There we go. We got a Super Bowl. Philadelphia, shut up, because within 2 years, Philadelphia fans were acting like it's the end of the world.
I mean, I think the obvious one right in front of you is this could be very similar to the Niners when the Niners made it.
Except they made the conference championship, but sure.
Yeah. But like, they kind of came out of nowhere. We thought this was going to be, and it's just like, I just think it's not like, because I think something is people like, great for the Bengals, but it's okay. They'll be back, I think we have a tendency to say that about teams. Oh, it's okay. They'll be back. I mean, we certainly had to have felt it with the Seahawks in 2014. They lose to the Patriots, but it's like, okay, they'll be back. They haven't been back, and obviously they got one the year before, so it stings less, but there isn't there's not a lot of being back, that there hasn't been. I mean, the Patriots they spoiled us with what they did, but it's really hard to, get to Super Bowls and win Super Bowls and stuff. And so when you don't kind of do it in your one chance, I mean, who knows? So that's just my thing is, I'm not sure that the Bengals are like, they're not in the same tier as the Chiefs and the Bills to me right now. And maybe the Ravens, if they're fully healthy, I don't put the Ravens in that same tier, but I'm not ready to say that the Bengals are now like this super AFC superpower.
Well, the other thing that's in front of us alongside with the Niners is the Rams, because you look at the Niners 2 years ago going up against the Chiefs. What's been the glaring weakness for the Niners up until this point? It's been Jimmy G. Now, Jimmy G is on his way out of San Fran, most likely this offseason. It's going to be the Trey Lance era coming up. And people have the Niners being a top 10 team in the league with Trey Lance at quarterback, and he hasn't been the premier QB1 once in his career so far, other than starting a game or two.
I mean, it's a 1 year.
He has not been the quarterback. You look at the Rams a few years ago after their Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean,
what was the glaring weakness of the Rams back then? Was Jared Goff.
Well, no, it was the entire offense that didn't score in the Super Bowl.
Yes, in one game. I'm just saying. Well, Jimmy G didn't play good in that game either.
I mean,
that was Todd Gurley's team. Is the thing.
Was Jared Goff the weakness, because they then gave him a massive extension to make him one of the top paid quarterbacks?
Sure, you get a quarterback that takes you to the Super Bowl. I'm sure teams are just gonna, ooh and ah.
I think also people would have said, "Oh, the Rams will be back." And they are back, but they had to do a massive change. And I'm not saying that,
and they have a different quarterback.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that the Bengals are going to have to trade Joe Burrow, obviously. That's
exactly my point. The Rams had Jared Goff.
Yeah.
That was one of the weaknesses of that team. They get Matt Stafford. They go and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Jimmy G makes it to the Super Bowl. He's on his way out with Trey Lance coming in. Who knows where the Niners are going to go? But what the Bengals are right now, Joe Burrow is not their glaring weakness. It's their number one strength.
Yeah.
So that being said, I would say Bengals going into next season, you could put them top 10. And by that, I mean 10th or 9th. I'm not saying they're top 5.
I agree with that.
But they're top 10.
Yeah. They're certainly, they'll be fighting for the division or a wild card spot, but not a first overall, not like a 1 or 2 seed, most likely. And who knows? Stuff can change. I mean, I thought they weren't going to win
with the seeding too. We can have 8 teams in each conference go in the playoffs.
Sure.
Before we already have 7. So
I mean, don't listen to me. Like I said, I thought the Bengals were going to win 6 games this year, and they didn't. But I think the NFL, more than any other league, is so unpredictable that I think a lot of Bengals fans are taking solace in the fact that it's okay, we're young, we'll be back, and take it from two Seahawk fans that thought they were going to have a decade of Russell Wilson Super Bowl appearances. Nothing's guaranteed. So, that's something.
The last question I'll ask you, because this is my favorite thing about the NFL, is that there is always another team that enters the picture every single season. It may not be a new team that wins every year.
It's also not always the Bengals, going from really, really bad to this good. I think everybody's thinking, who's going to be this year's Bengals? Well, the Bengals were on the level of the Jaguars and the Jets and stuff, but there's definitely teams that step up,
because you could literally, not only step up, but could completely change their identity.
Yeah.
I.e. Tampa Bay 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody ever even took Jameis Winston seriously. They go get Tom Brady, they win a Super Bowl. So,
and there's a similar looming situation with another quarterback that might be on the outs that can kind of do that.
So the question I ask is, since there's always a team that comes out of nowhere or is now in the picture that wasn't in the picture last year,
how far out of the picture do they have to be?
They did not, they were not above 500.
Because my team that I think could be the one that I have a feeling what you're. I'm not going to say Washington, but
okay.
Pittsburgh made the playoffs, but it wasn't really. But I think they're the type of team that if they get the quarterback, I could see them going from a team that you're not taking seriously to win the Super Bowl right now. That could do it, and obviously they made the playoffs, but a kind of fluky. But I mean, you'd have to Denver is thrown in there with pretty good odds just because of the Aaron Rodgers factor, and obviously that would change a lot of things. But I don't know. I don't really see the it's hard to see the go from top 10 pick to Super Bowl contender type thing.
Because it happens more often than we realize.
I mean, sometimes the Niners did it. The Bengals just did it, but I don't know. It's so hard to predict. The
Eagles practically did it with Carson Wentz.
I think if I was looking at the pieces that make that happen, it's coach and quarterback, and so that would have me say Jaguars, but they don't have the other pieces necessary to do that. Because I think they have the if you're talking about a quarterback that can make the jump that Joe Burrow did to being, a guy that can win you playoff games. I think Trevor Lawrence is better suited than some of the other young quarterbacks, than a Justin Fields or, but I don't think the Jaguars have everything else around them that they need. I don't know. I mean, I am not going to say Washington, not Carolina.
I'm just saying teams that'll make the playoff, not be a Super Bowl.
It's the Falcons.
The Falcons, okay, interesting.
The division could possibly be wide open. Matt Ryan is the best quarterback in the division right now. I think second year under the coach, get Calvin Ridley back. Kyle Pitts will be better. Get better on defense. I think certainly they could win the division. But I mean, and then I don't know if you want to throw the Seahawks in there. That's kind of
no, they don't count.
Not really. I mean, yeah, with Russell Wilson,
the playoffs last year.
Yeah, that's the kind of
they won the division last year against the team that just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that's kind of. But I think everybody's going to be enamored with finding the next Bengals next year, and I don't think there is one. So settle for the mid tier.
3 teams come to mind, and you can roll your eyes off of any of them. I'll totally be fine with it. Not ranked in any particular order. Number 1, the Giants. New head coach.
I thought about that.
NFC East is not a premier division by any means.
Yeah, I thought about that, but I don't.
Could be.
I think Daniel Jones makes a leap, but not a big enough leap.
Sure. So Giants are one of those teams. Believe it or not, I think Bears could make a jump. New head coach, Justin Fields finally makes his statement as the new quarterback.
Especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves the division, that certainly opens it up. And it's going to come down to what Justin Fields is able to do. But yeah, certainly
But
possible.
the one that intrigues me the most, and this is out of left, I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl because Lord knows that's never happened, but possible dark horse playoff contender if Aaron Rodgers leaves is the Lions. Purely based off of the head coaching and how competitive that team is.
No.
I would go with the Lions.
No.
Why? Why not?
Jared Goff.
He made it to the Super Bowl, didn't he?
One of the best offenses.
Well, he's got one of the best damn coaches.
He doesn't have one of the best coaches.
I love Dan Campbell so much. I feel he's
one of the best people as coaches, maybe.
And maybe out the top of my head, maybe the Jets. But that's a terrible division for them to compete in. So I'm just saying these are up-and-coming teams, however long you want to look at that term. But these are teams that no one's going to think about, and then they're going to shock the world.
Took the Bengals 2 years from being garbage. So give the Lions another year, and then we'll talk about it.
So out of those three teams, I think I will stick with
the Bears. Are the best bet.
I'm going to stick with the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I have obviously questions about kind of their offensive makeup, but I mean, somebody's going to shock us, not necessarily to the level of the Bengals.
Someone's going to shock us because someone will disappoint us.
Well, there's always teams that drop out of the playoffs. 7 teams that made the playoffs last year didn't make it this year, which is, insane to think about. So stuff's going to happen. You never know, but that's why we love football. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning in today, as well as throughout the season with us. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Remember, you can follow Dash Sports on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, as well as subscribe to the Dash Sports YouTube channel to see what else we've got going on. But yeah, thanks